how ridiculous is it that it's weird to wear something twice? So much merch. Oh, I'm getting sweaty. Okay, so this isn't normally how I film my videos. If you've seen any of them, you'll know that I normally really deeply script it because I don't really ever want to say anything factually incorrect or have my words be unclear or twisted in some way. But today I thought I would try something different. I made a video about wardrobe clearouts, essentially reacting to people doing wardrobe clearouts, and just as I was editing it, I kind of realized this isn't everything that I want to say. I want to say a lot of things to fashion influencers that I don't get to include in that video and that I think are really important to be said and that have been frustrating me and I'm sure some of you for years, probably. So I thought we should just sit down and talk about it. Before we do actually start, I want to put a little bit of a disclaimer in here. I know I'm notorious for having disclaimers in my videos, but I think it's important that people know who I'm addressing and who I don't want to blame or put any extra responsibility on is people that don't have the same privileges that a lot of fashion influencers do and that I do in many ways. The people that I'm addressing are people that have privileges of wealth, thin privilege, white privilege, a high social standing, a lot of social power, a lot of economic and financial power, people that can make a change and that don't need to be doing what they're currently doing. I'm not trying to call out small influencers that are doing their best, people that are actually influencing sustainably, people of color, marginalized people who are just fighting tooth and nail to get their voice out there and their voice heard. So let's just get started. Another note, my hair is wet. I just washed it. I wasn't planning to film today. It just sort of happened. So that's why. The first main thing that I want to say is just a blanket stop promoting fast fashion. And when you see influencers talking about this, they always get very defensive and they sort of say, well, I'm not promoting it. I'm not telling everyone to buy these things. I'm just showing them my outfits. I'm trying to be sort of a style inspiration, I guess. And I just think that completely ignores the context of how YouTube works, how social media works, how people's psychology works. I think what people refuse to accept when they even take part in the fast fashion industry, let alone promote it, is that they are inherently promoting the modern slavery, the exploitation, the racism, the sexism, the environmental destruction, the climate change that is being caused by that industry. And there's a different level of responsibility from a consumer to someone who is actively a part of it, because fashion influencers are part of the fashion industry. If your job is to buy things from fast fashion brands and then wear them on the internet, then you are inherently a part of the fashion industry and you are promoting it. And just turning around and saying, it's not my fault or that's my job, like, you can curate your job into being something that doesn't cause other people so much harm. I need influencers to take responsibility for what they are promoting and to understand what they are promoting. And when you are within that industry, you can't just say, oh, I didn't know. You can't feign ignorance. You can't be ignorant because it's your responsibility in your life, in your job, to be a good person. Now, if you just turn around to me and say, I don't want to be a good person, then like, okay, cool, I can't say anything to you. But if you say you want to be a good person and you feel you want to be a good person, you need to recognize that what you're doing isn't ethical. One of the things that annoys me the most, I think, especially with YouTube influencers in fashion, and actually YouTube influencers that have nothing to do with fashion as well, is so much merch. Stop making merch. Let's be real. Who needs a t-shirt with somebody else's name on it? I understand that we live in a society where advertising has conditioned us to think that we gain some sort of status from having a brand name or a person's name printed across our body. But that just isn't true. Influencers have all the power once again, and the people who buy these items are generally on the younger end, teenagers, children, and they don't have that developed brain yet to understand how horrible that is. And a lot of adults don't understand how problematic that is in society in general, that we buy something and it makes us feel a certain way. It makes us feel that we have more status or more money, or that we somehow are a better person. I completely understand as a viewer wanting to support the person that makes that content, but that's why Patreon exists. That's why people do other projects. They start their own business. They do something, I guess, more productive than just designing a t-shirt that has their name on it or like some quirky little in-joke. I don't understand. And once you do start making merch, the responsibility of how that's manufactured falls on you. How many YouTubers do you know that make ethical, sustainable merch? Genuinely, I can only think of one. And most of the sustainable influencers that I do watch and that I do interact with don't make any merch at all because they realize that that isn't something that society needs. Making that merch and just saying you're making it because people want it is the same ideology as when people say that, like, oh, if we didn't consume as much, brands wouldn't be making as much. I think what that misses is that it's not human nature to consume this much. It's not how it's always been. It's that the fashion industry has conditioned us through marketing and advertising into living our lives in this way. And if you are a part of the fashion industry, then you are contributing to that conditioning, which I can only assume that you don't possibly agree with. Like, who thinks that consumerism is the way to happiness, right? Right? I hope not. So if you must make merch, if you think that you have this amazing idea that is genuinely good for your subscribers, good for the planet, good for society in general, then make it ethically. But that means that you have to take the responsibility to visit those factories, visit those workers, find certifications, find sustainable fabrics, make sure that you're doing it ethically and you're doing it responsible, because the responsibility is entirely on you. And all of that suffering that's happening in your manufacturing and in your supply chains is entirely on you. And by selling it to people, you are then allowing them to implicate themselves in this horrible cycle of suffering and tragedy. Stop excusing overconsumption. Now, this ties into the whole merch conversation, but it's also a bigger issue with when it comes to people doing wardrobe clearouts or wardrobe tours or house tours or whatever. You always get influencers making excuses for why they have the amount of items or clothing that they have.
I've bought a lot of weird stuff. I've bought a lot of stuff, period. But the truth of the matter is I do go through it all the time. And I often am like, right as I finish a video, I will donate the whole bundle of clothing.
The reason I have so many clothes is because of what I do for a living, which is make fashion videos on YouTube. Just in the exact same way that an electrician probably has more household tools than the average person, I probably have more clothes than the average person.
And to an extent, I understand it. To an extent, it is true. Your job is fashion, so therefore you obviously must interact with the physical, practical world of fashion with clothes and with buying them and wearing them and using them. The problem is, at the moment, influencers are expected, again with the same conditioning of the fashion industry and throwaway culture and the idea that it's not cool to rewear stuff. You feel as an influencer, and I understand that you need to wear something different in every video, in every post, in every whatever. But again, what you need to realize is that you are a part of the system that is continuing that ideology. There are currently influencers who promote re-wearing things, and like, why wouldn't you? How ridiculous is it that it's weird to wear something twice? How are we okay with the idea of wearing something once and then throwing it away? And it's this idea of like buying things just for photo shoots or buying things just to show once on Instagram. Like, how can you justify bringing something into your life and promoting it to your followers and your subscribers with essentially a lie and with the idea that things are worth so little that it's okay to just wear them once and then throw them away? If you'd made that garment, how would you feel seeing people do that? Let alone if you'd made that garment under duress because it was the last thing that you could do to put food on the table, or because you are literally being forced into it if you made it under conditions of no health and safety, of abuse, of exploitation, if you weren't paid enough to do it, if you were working 14-hour days to make that one garment, and then you see some privileged influencer putting it on for 5 seconds and then literally tossing it out. The idea of making videos with clothes that you've bought for only that one video just doesn't make any sense to me. And also, just the idea of making videos with clothes that you know aren't going to be good quality for the purpose of making fun of those clothes and then immediately throwing them away is also extremely problematic. Like, how are we taking what is such a horrible problem in our world and in the fashion industry and reducing it down into, haha, I bought a few items from Wish and they were so terrible, and you're laughing about how badly they are made and not considering the reasons behind that and the context behind that. Oh, I'm getting sweaty. On the note of wardrobe clearouts, I understand that now wardrobe clearouts have become this big thing, this big trend on YouTube. Everybody's doing them, everybody's putting clickbaity titles on things, and look, I use like kind of clickbaity titles. You sort of have to. It's part of using the YouTube algorithm in your favor. I get that. But when the title itself is promoting overconsumption and is promoting that throwaway culture, when the title is something like throwing away 12 bags of clothing, or when the thumbnail is showing this huge mound of clothing pieces that you are getting rid of, you're promoting this idea that throwing away that amount of clothing is good, is funny, is somehow a good idea to do, is adding something to people's lives. And I understand that sometimes as an influencer, you get gifted a lot of things and maybe you haven't said no to them, maybe you should, but maybe you haven't, and you end up having all of this clothing in your house. I would rather you made a video about that, discussing your own issues with overconsumption, your own issues with saying no to clothing, your own journey of getting to a more sustainable place in your wardrobe, rather than just turning it into pure entertainment of like, haha, look how many things I own and how many people's handiwork I'm going to be throwing out in one day. Like, if you're filling 12 bin bags of clothing, you have a real problem, and you shouldn't be promoting that out into your audience as something that's funny or entertaining or in any way okay to be doing. And I know that a lot of the time these videos have those disclaimers about, this is my job and that's why I have this much clothing and you guys shouldn't do this, it isn't okay. But realistically, people don't listen to other people's words, they listen to other people's actions. You literally are called an influencer. You have an influence, you have power, and therefore you have the responsibility to use that in a good way. Stop buying so much stuff that you then have to throw it away because it's taking up too much space in your life. And stop excusing throwing things away by saying that you're donating them. The donation system and the charity shop system doesn't work in the way that we think it does. And I think, again, it's inherently problematic that we see ourselves getting rid of something and then just presume that it's taken care of. It isn't. There are huge issues with people donating way too many items to those charities. People are donating items that nobody would want. Like, if you bought something from Wish for a video with the purpose of making fun of how terrible it is, why would you assume that anybody else would want to then wear that thing? It's obviously going to get sent right to landfill, and then that charity is paying for it to get sent to landfill, and landfills are filling up around the world. Let alone when those charities export that clothing into other countries, into the global south, into countries that now can't have their own fashion and textile industry because they're being flooded with this secondhand clothing from the global north. Their landfills are filling up. It's out of our sight, so we think it's sorted, but those people are not only unable to build up their own local industry, they're also having to deal with essentially our rubbish. Like, how is that okay? And finally, I think my biggest pet peeve in this is people who say that they care about sustainable fashion, say that they care about ethical fashion, say that they want to make a change and make a difference, and then continue making the exact same content that they always did. Just because you made one video about thrifting doesn't mean that you are now a channel that is promoting secondhand shopping. And if you make a video about thrifting that is under the same consumerist principles as all of your other fast fashion videos, that's not sustainable either. If you say that you want to become more sustainable, if you say that you care about sustainable fashion, then you're going to have to prove it. And look, we all understand that it's not as easy as waking up one day and being like, I'm going to change my whole life. I'm going to change my whole job. People have patience. People look for the best in others. And every time that I see an influencer saying, guys, I want to make a change. I've learned about the fast fashion industry. I want to change how I live and how I am and how I work. I always believe them at first because I want to believe the best in people. I genuinely think that everyone is just doing the best that they can. No. Well, actually, I don't really. I genuinely believe that people do care about these things. The problem is, you can't say that you care about it and then the next day or the next month or 6 months later post another wardrobe clear out or post another shopping spree or another haul. If you say you care about sustainable fashion, then show it. Do it. Show your audience your journey towards it. Help them come along that journey with you. Look at how sustainable fashion influencers work. You can reach out to them, ask them what they're doing. Find out how you could change your job into something that isn't promoting all of these horrible things. A lot of people can't choose their jobs, and I completely understand that. But when you are someone that has so much power on social media, yes, it can be scary to imagine changing that job into something different. But you can still be an influencer. You can still make YouTube videos for money. You can still work in that way. It's just you need to change your mindset and you need to change the practical everyday ways in which you do it. At the end of the day, it's about who do you want to be? What do you want to promote? When you have that amount of influencer, when you have that amount of influence, hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, imagine them all sitting in a room or like standing in a city or living in a country, depending how many you have. This is what a crowd of 1 million people looks like. Some of the influencers I've talked about in this video have more than twice this many followers and subscribers. If everyone in that room, city, or country did exactly what you're doing, where would the world be? Because that's what you're essentially doing as your job, is you are influencing groups of people to live and shop and consume in different ways. So influence them well, take that power and take that responsibility and use it for something good. That doesn't mean that your channel needs to be educational or that everything needs to be about information or that you need to sit down and do the sorts of videos that I do. You don't. You can use the same content. It can still be entertainment, but you need to look at the values behind it and what that is promoting. If you wouldn't promote a detox tea, why would you promote a brand that isn't inclusive? Why would you promote an item that's made unethically? Do you only care about the health of your followers, or do you care about the health of everyone whose lives you impact? Because by buying into fast fashion, we are impacting these people's lives. And I understand that as just one consumer, it can be difficult to change that. There are some real, practical, financial, real life reasons why people can't completely stop buying fast fashion. But it's not truthful as a big influencer on YouTube or on Instagram to turn around and say that you can't make that change. If you can't, then who can? I think that's where I'm going to end this video. I've said the basics of what I wanted to say. If you want to learn a little bit more about all of the different things that I've talked about, I have a lot of other videos on this channel. Check out my videos. Feel free to contact me. I'm here to help. This is the entire point of what I do. I just want everyone to do a bit better, to take a bit more responsibility, and to use their privilege in a useful way to make the world a better place. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you stick around and watch a few more of my videos. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment down below with any video ideas that you want me to do in the future, and have a good day.